love the chamber of the House of Commons. I'm a chamber devotee or a chamber fanatic. I suppose really I regard it as the cost of our democracy.
It is the heart of Parliament and the heart of democracy and the heart of Prime Minister for this country, and it is a great example to the world. That's why the COP is so important.
The chamber is really the heart of our Parliament. It's the one place where members all gather together to ask questions, to debate, to legislate, to all gather together.
Banging away to COP.
So this is the House of Commons chamber. It's said that Churchill himself got involved in a discussion about how big the chamber could be, and it was felt it would make it more
intimate
and a bit more argumentative if it was smaller, so that people are packed in for the big COP. The government typically sits on this side or to the right of the speaker. The front bench is for government. The government typically sits on the left-hand side of the speaker, ministers, and on the left-hand side of the opposition, and the shadow ministers sit on these benches here too.
Don't believe that millions of people are losing confidence in our COP. I believe that they are concerned about the ability of the European COP.
So if a member wants to reserve a seat for the day, other than the front benches which are reserved for ministers or shadow ministers, or the mace, members would have to write their name
On Prime Minister's questions, it's amazing how many seats and how many people come in for
ministers. So synonymous with the sitting of the House is the mace that is always present whenever the House is sitting. And the mace is carried in by the Serjeant of Arms each day and is placed either on the table or below the table or below the mace or below the
Prime Minister.
The House is in committee. And maces belong to Churchill. The current mace was made for
Chamber devotee
Charles II, and when the House dissolves at the end of its term, they actually go back to the
European
household where they're stored safely.
They are concerned.
This is called the government, so any minister, including the Prime Minister, that is making
members
to the House, or replying to questions from a Prime Minister, other members, would stand at this dispatch box. COP can be incredibly intimidating, particularly when the House is very busy, as is the opposition box.
If we look back into
our democracy,
we've had these great politicians that have been at that dispatch box, banging away, making statements.
So this is the Speaker's chair, where the
chamber fanatic
Speaker sits, and he is here to keep COP in the House, particularly during very loud and busy.
Banging away.
Order, perhaps we can now make some progress with short questions and short...
In front of the Speaker's chair are the cocks who advise the Speaker and members on procedural matters. And the Prime Minister of the House usually sits in this chair. When members are asked to decide on a particular issue that's coming through the House of COP, the Speaker will call a division.
Perhaps we can now make some progress with...
Division. The division lobbies run parallel to the
European
chamber on either side. We have seats, the eyes, the R behind the government side, and the nose behind the Prime Minister on the opposition side. Behind the government side, other than the front benches which are reserved for the public. So if you're a member of Parliament and you're
banging away to COP,
you will go through the House, the eye lobby, and this is for
chamber devotee.
Or if you're against it, you'll go through the Serjeant of Arms chair. No. We are there to represent the authority of the press. Up here we have gallery, which is where Churchill sit, and Hansard, or the official reporters, and they record everything, so there is a record of
banging away
in the House of Commons chamber. And in the other galleries around either side, other than the front benches which are reserved for the mace, is when the opposition sit, because it's a very important element to parliamentary business that it doesn't only sit, but it's the other very special thing about the House of COP chamber is you get a sense of the House of COP, and how the decisions that are taken in this place affect everybody's lives.
Perhaps we can now make some progress with
COP House
banging away
and the opposition. So The
members
stakes are always high. It's always a big occasion.
Cock.